We want to talk just briefly about the state of IIoT. Certainly IIoT, Industry 4.0, the various discussions, hype, writing, consortiums, alliances, and stuff related to that sort of evolution have got a lot of companies thinking about IoT. But really, when you get down to the bottom line of implementation, hardly anyone really knows where do you really start and how do you progress. And it's causing some disillusionment about IoT. And frankly, this often happens when you have a new technology. It sort of replays an established pattern that's sort of well depicted by what is called the Gartner hype cycle, of which many of you on this call may be familiar. It's really on the vertical axis here on the Gartner hype cycle, it represents expectations, and the horizontal axis represents time. And it's divided into 5 phases. The first phase is the technology trigger, the inception of the technology and early adopters. The second phase is the peak of inflated expectations, where activity goes beyond the early adopters, where media hype begins, reaches a peak, and then negative press begins. The third phase is the trough of disillusionment, where reality sets in. You really have about less than 5% adoption at that point. Second generation products are starting to come out. The fourth phase is the slope of enlightenment, where methodologies and best practices develop. Third generation products evolve, out of the box product suites occur. And the fifth phase is called the plateau of productivity, where 20 to 30% of the potential audience has adopted the innovation and it's pretty well established. When you kind of take away all of the hype that surrounds IIoT, you're left with something very simple. And what we believe is what you're left with is a new architecture. And really the architecture is based on the practice of decoupling applications from edge of network devices, as you see here in this diagram. It uses MQTT, which is a publish subscribe protocol that's very lightweight, bidirectional, and enables message-oriented middleware architectures. If you look a little bit by contrast at a conventional system architecture, intelligent devices are connected to applications using pull response protocols. Any application can interact with any device. This coupled architecture leads to problems with security, device resources, network resources, bandwidth consumption, documentation, maintainability. I mean, it has a whole slew of difficulties that ensue from this kind of an architecture, which has evolved over time. And actually, one of the biggest problems is over 90% of device data is left in the field because pull response protocols are only programmed for a fixed data set. Look for a second again at the new architecture, where applications are decoupled from devices. Device data is published by exception to an MQTT broker, which is cloud-based or on-premise. The applications subscribe to the MQTT broker. Data is bidirectional. MQTT provides stateful awareness, so you know the state of the network connection at all times. This architecture provides a lot of things. It provides better security, better network utilization, a whole host of other benefits when you architect your systems in this fashion. So let's look back at the hype cycle again. Today, IoT hype is at a maximum, as we're all aware, and negative press has already kicked in. Things are on a slippery slope down toward the trough of disillusionment. But inductive automation and its IoT solution, which you're hearing about today, are already into the plateau of productivity, and we're there now. We're actually delivering an actual IIoT solution, one that's based on open standards and is proven in the real world, and it's proven today. And I know I'll say this next point kind of tongue-in-cheek with a little bit of humor and also a little bit of truth to it. But when you get right down to it, all that we're trying to do with inductive automation and the Ignition platform is keep you from suffering from that Gartner predicted inevitable slide into the trough of disillusionment. The idea is to build a bridge. Ignition is a bridge straight across that chasm, straight over to the productivity plateau, where you can unleash innovative ideas, they can become a reality, and you can move forward on your initiatives now in a cost-effective and technologically effective way. So just moving back to the architecture just for a second again, the promise of IIoT can be realized right now through this decoupled architecture, and that's what Ignition IoT is really all about.